Today I have Nina and Alex, and they are on the DatDot team, and they'll be telling us all about this project. So I don't know who wants to go first, but let's hear what DatDot is about.
Yeah, so DatDot is a peer-to-peer hosting or peer-to-peer availability service. So what problem are we even solving? Today, we are all, or a lot of us, shopping through Amazon, talking to friends on Facebook or Twitter, and searching the web through Google. And they know everything about us. They know what we are buying. They know what we are talking to our friends. They know what we are searching. And not just about me personally, but about every single person who is using it. And that's a lot of people. And that's also a lot of data. So all of these conversations, searches, everything goes through these centralized servers of big tech. And they have to store this data and they have to serve it from their servers. And this is a lot of data. And with this, also a lot of costs. So how do they pay for these costs? They sell our data. They process it, they monetize it, they give it to other parties, and we don't even know who these parties are. We don't know where our data is even going. So this is also super unsustainable, because instead of us talking directly to each other, we are always sending, like, for example, now when we are talking, we're sending messages to some server in, I don't know, Amsterdam. And then from there, it goes to you, for example, and back. And this is like burning so much energy for why? We think that data should be in the hands of users. Users should control the data, should own the data, and users should serve this data. This would make things way more sustainable. And peer-to-peer is here. It's working. You can do live streams, you can do chats, you can do file sharing. The problem is just that we need to now bring the whole internet, all the Web 2 stuff, to this peer-to-peer. And this is a lot of services such as YouTube and Wikipedia, and for developers, for example, GitHub and NPM package managers and so on. And we need to make this super robust. So this has to, data has to be available like 24/7. We have to make sure that anytime you want to access this data is available. So currently, peer-to-peer mostly works from my computer to your computer. And to scale this, we need to make sure that there is always somebody who is seeding the data. So if I'm traveling somewhere and I'm on the plane and my computer is turned off, there has to be access to this data also when I'm not online. So yeah, this is what we're trying to do with DatDot. We're basically building a system that is fully secure, end-to-end encrypted, and it helps to have these many copies of data available. We are currently part of that ecosystem, and we're working with other projects on interoperability, and we're basically trying to support all the DAT protocols. But we made a prototype for DatDot with Hypercore protocol. So we're basically creating like a coordination process in this DatDot, where we are helping peers find each other. So anyone who has some extra storage on their computer, and we have like hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of space. So anyone who has extra storage and anyone who needs somebody to help them with keeping their data alive, we match them. And then we have an algorithm that is on regular intervals, selecting random peers and asking them to go and check if these hosters, those peers that are supposed to host the data, are actually having the data stored. So we call this a proof of storage. And we also check if they are actually serving the data in the swarm. So if they are making this data available, and we call this a proof of performance or proof of availability. So this is like somehow like in a gist of a system that we are building. It's basically like a system of cross-checking and verifying. Hypercore is Merkle verified protocol. So every chunk that you get from any random peer can be verified, so that we can make sure that the data that is being seeded and stored on different devices is the real data. So it's really fully secure. And if somebody wants to know more in details, like how the system works, we have it described with some diagrams on DatDot.org page under documentation. But if you have some questions or would just like to discuss these things, just come over to our Discord, which is bridged to Cabal as well. So you can also enter through Cabal chat. And talk to us. We're happy to share more.
Thank you so much, Nina. That was a lot of explanations, and it was very clear. Alex, I see you wanted to say something, so I'm going to ask you a question. So on my research, I found out that DatDot also helps when users have difficulties with internet, or when they want to turn off their computers. So does that mean that users can use DatDot without internet?
Basically, when you use any peer-to-peer app, the data goes directly from your computer to the computers of the users that you interact with. But if you are using apps where you want others to see your data, for example, your web page or your blog, or maybe your, let's say, Facebook messages, but let's say a peer-to-peer alternative.
Cabal messages?
Yeah, Cabal chat messages, but you are offline. So if you are offline, then whoever is online and wants to read the messages that you maybe posted on your web page, they can't, because it's peer-to-peer. It would go from you directly to them. So if you're offline, then you can, before you go offline, you can use DatDot, and it matches you to peers who currently are online and offer storage, and they store a copy of your data. It can be fully encrypted and secure, so that only the users that you may be allowed to view your chat messages can see it. But in the case of your public website, you maybe don't encrypt it. But in any case, peers that join the DatDot network will keep copies, so that when you are offline, others can still read it. So in that sense, DatDot helps others while you are offline to still have the data available. Other use case would be if you have your data and your computer crashes, or your disk stops working, then maybe you have a backup of all your data, but encrypted, stored on DatDot. So when you have a new computer, you can download your data again and have it again available.
Because there is no servers anymore. So currently, like if we use Discord, for example, everything is stored on the servers of Discord. And if your computer crashes, you just log in again and get the data from their server. But if we go into this future of no servers, no digital landlords, we literally have our data only on our computers. So for some very important data, we need to take care of the backup. And this is where DatDot can be used. Just one more thing to mention, DatDot is a protocol, is an open source mechanism that can be used by many communities. So there can be many DatDot instances. So just to mention this, that it's not necessary that everybody uses just one DatDot and this is just one service, but there can be many.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Nina. So you already mentioned how DatDot uses Hypercore protocol. I can remember you said some things about it. Do you want to say some other things about that as well?
Right. So Hypercore protocol is traditionally the DAT protocol, or DatDot. DAT is almost 10 years old. And over the years, there's a lot of new projects, and they're using all kinds of peer-to-peer protocols, and we want to support all of them. But we started with the first protocol in Hypercore protocol, and it's the way how apps and users already share data peer-to-peer, and we're using all the cryptographic mechanisms in Hypercore protocol to enable DatDot, but be able to verify that data is stored appropriately and that it's all secure and encrypted if needed.
That makes sense. So how is this project being sustained, or where did the funds come from?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any VC funding. This is what we decided when we started. We want to stay an independent project. So we're not looking for investors. We're not a startup. We see ourselves more as a group of volunteers or people who are excited about peer-to-peer. And we're building an open system that can be used by anyone. So that's about how we're not having money. And now you can explain maybe how we are getting money.
Yeah,
still.
so we still do have, we have, for example, an open collective account, so people can donate to us, and some people do. We got also some individual people who in the past donated to support us. We also applied for a few grant programs that were basically the kind of service that we're trying to build was exactly what those grant programs were looking for. And because that matched quite well, they gave us smaller grants to also work on it. Otherwise, also we personally sometimes, of course, work on certain like contracting and working for others. And then through that, we can finance us so that we can support the project. But overall, the goal is to stay financed, of course, improve the situation, but stay financed by the community and peers, and hopefully maybe even our users in the future, and not so much that all the money comes from one big major VC or basically to stay as independent as possible.
And maybe just to add, whenever we do get funding, we always pass on part of the funding to our dependencies. So Hypercore, for example, is one of the dependencies. So we are building on top of that technology. And we think that the only way open source will stay sustainable in the future is that if you get some funding and you are building on top of some giants, you also have to reward them forward so that they can continue working on the things that are for free to use because they're open source.
Thank you so much for explaining that. And it's not like a lot of work, and I must really commend you both. It's not easy to dive into this a project from baby steps or from the beginning, and then watch it grow on to something very huge, and then you have branches of this project, and without like concrete funds, it's mind blowing when I come to think of it. And well done. I know that DatDot is open sourced. Where can the code repositories be found?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment we are still using GitHub. GitHub is maybe the main social network for programmers where all the open source code repositories are found. But at the same time, it's also a Web 2.0 service. It's bought by Microsoft, so it's basically owned by Microsoft. So of course, maybe DatDot in the future can help to build a peer-to-peer alternative. But until we get there, we are still using it because that's where everyone is at the moment. We actually want to even go beyond it and make things more open source. Like we're working in the open, like many companies, they do open source by being very traditional, like a regular company, and having some open source code, but written in a style that is almost impossible for anyone else to reuse. And we're trying to make things modular and actually reusing others and hoping that others reuse our code and write it in a way that it's easy to reuse. And we're working in the open, and we want to improve this in the future even more, having even payments and everything transparent. Like open source is like maybe the guiding principle for everything, and it should not be just about code. It should be about the entire organization and also all the supply chains. So in that ecosystem, we have that thought in all the projects that we collaborate with.
That's very nice. But what are the plans for DatDot in the next month or the next year? I mean, what are the future goals that you want to achieve with this project?
I mean, like the very short term, we are updating the latest prototype of to the latest Hypercore version. We're like halfway there, maybe a little bit more, 60%. Hypercore went they changed a lot, so they have a version 10 and we have to update everything to this version. And otherwise we are also trying to integrate it with the data shell project. That is a project that we are also in parallel working on. Maybe Alex, if you want to mention anything.
Yeah, it's basically if you're building a peer-to-peer app, it would be good if you use some standards so that the data that you are creating inside the app or that you're receiving is stored in one data vault instead of some other places like in traditional Web 2 apps. So you have full control over the data, and if you don't like a certain app, you can use a new one and take all your data with you and use it with the new app. Almost like in the times when you had like on your computer I don't know, a text editor or some sort of a Word program, and then you create a document, and then somebody else or you can also open that document with another text editor, and it still works. So you can change the programs you use, and you just open the file. And so this idea we want to apply to every app, which also makes it easier for us in DatDot to allow users to back up all their data, regardless of what app they're using. And so that makes a lot of sense to empower users and make backups easy, and in general, help peer-to-peer to move to the next level.
Hope that you reach that goal. DatDot is an exciting project, and it's a very thoughtful one because, like you mentioned on the website, you mentioned the problems that people have now and how DatDot is providing a solution to this problem. So I believe that many developers or people in the tech space would definitely be interested in finding the solution to their problems in DatDot. So I hope that you reach all your goals. I really hope so.
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
We also hope so.
Yeah, we hope so too.
But now does one join the community?
I mean, the first step is definitely to reach out to us, maybe on GitHub or through issues. Or through the chat. But the best thing probably is if you can start building something peer-to-peer and then use DatDot to as your dependency, because this is basically an infrastructure project. So if we build an infrastructure and there is nobody using it, then this infrastructure is not useful. So we're hoping that people can build something on top of it.
Yeah, it's also like we try to provide documentation so people can learn, and if you have questions, so we can help. And if you have ideas how to improve the documentation or really want to help, I mean, we have enough work to share a bit of it. But yeah, as Nina said, building something on top of it, that would give us also a lot of feedback and would help us a lot.
Oh, that's nice. I know that a lot of people will jump on this, and I look forward to seeing more people joining this community or contributing to this project. Well done. But I have one question. This has to be my favorite question for any interview. The name DatDot. Why DatDot? Who named it? I'm sure it's Nina.
I think maybe yes. I mean, at the beginning, it was really just like, okay, we need a placeholder name, and it was like that is, short for data. So if you think of this append-only log, the Hypercore, and it has like many chunks, I perceive that one of these chunks is dot, and a dot is basically every user. So every peer is a dot in this big, large ecosystem of peer-to-peer. And then, that dot is a project where, you can kind of store your data in you as a dot with somebody else who is also a dot. Kind of, this is how I perceive it.
Thank you so much, Nina and Alex, for speaking with me on DatDot. I wish you all the best.